Okay, so we've all heard the term KPI, right? It gets thrown around in meetings, in reports, but what does it actually mean? Let's cut through all the corporate speak for a minute. When you boil it all down, a great KPI, well, it's really just the answer to one simple, powerful question.
And this is it. How do you know if you're winning? I mean, really think about that. Whether we're talking about business, sports, or, any personal goal you've set for yourself, how do you know for sure that you're on the right track? It can't just be a gut feeling, right? It's got to be about measurement.
And that, right there, is exactly where a KPI comes in. The best way to think about it is like a bridge. Imagine on one side of a canyon, you've got your big, ambitious strategy, your grand plan, and way over on the other side, you have all the stuff you do every single day, the operational activities. A KPI, that's the bridge that connects the two. It's the thing that tells you, hey, is all this daily running around actually getting us closer to our goal?
Okay, so how do we build this bridge? Where do we even start? Well, the first part, and honestly the most critical part, is designing the game plan. And there's a golden rule here. You've got to remember this. Strategy comes before spreadsheets. You absolutely have to think before you start tracking anything.
To make this really clear, let's stick with an analogy for a bit. Imagine you're a runner. Now, a pretty bad goal would be something like, I'm going to run more. What does that even mean? It's so vague. But a great objective? That's specific. Something like, I will run a 5K in under 25 minutes. See the difference? That is a target you can actually measure.
So this whole strategic process, it really just boils down to three key things. First, you set that super clear objective, like our 25-minute race time. Second, you got to make sure everyone on the team is running the same race, pointed in the same direction. And third, you have to justify your choices. You need to be able to answer the question, why are we measuring this specific thing? You've got to have a good answer for that.
And let's not forget the most important letter in KPI. It's the K, for key. This is so important. The goal is not to track every single thing that moves. That just creates noise. The real goal is to have the discipline to focus on the handful of things, the key things, that give you the absolute clearest signal of success.
All right, now your key metrics, they basically fall into two different camps. And getting this distinction is crucial. You've got lagging indicators and leading indicators. A lagging indicator tells you what happened in the past. It tells you if you won the game, like your final race time. It's history, it's done. But a leading indicator, that's different. That tries to predict if you're going to win the game. For our runner, that could be their weekly mileage or their average training pace. The best teams, the winning teams, they obsess over these leading indicators because they act like an early warning system.
All right, so we've got our strategy locked in. It's time to move on to section 2, building the scoreboard. This is where we stop talking theory and get really practical. We're going to turn that game plan into an actual number we can track and watch.
A good KPI isn't just some random number pulled out of thin air. It has a recipe. It has building blocks. You start with your raw data. Those are your inputs. Then you use a formula, that's the calculation, to turn that raw data into something meaningful. After that, you give it a unit of measurement, like a percentage or dollars or just a simple count. That's your metric. And finally, you give it a really clear, standardized name, so there's no confusion and everyone is talking about the exact same thing.
Let's go back to our runner for a second to see how this works. A target, that's their personal goal. Remember? The 25-minute 5K, that's what they're aiming for. A benchmark, on the other hand, is how they stack up against everyone else. Like, what's the average 5K time for people in their age group? So you see, one is your internal goal and the other gives you external context. Both are super useful.
So when you visualize a KPI, it usually tells a story on a really simple chart. You've got the horizontal line at the bottom, the x-axis. That's all about time. It shows you the story of your progress as time marches on.
And then you have the vertical line, the y-axis. That one shows the actual value at any given point, like the runner's race time. When you put time and value together, that's when your performance really comes to life. And it's this super simple visualization that lets us build our most powerful tool.
And that brings us to our final section, and honestly, this is the most important part of all. You've done the hard work of creating a strategy, you built the scoreboard to track everything, so now what? What do you do with it? This section is all about using that data to make smarter decisions and actually win the game.
The number one tool for this is the dashboard. The best analogy I can think of is the cockpit of an airplane. A pilot has dozens of instruments, right? But the dashboard brings the most important ones: altitude, speed, fuel, direction, all into one place.
That's what a good business dashboard does. It brings all your key KPIs together so you can see the big picture at a glance and make those critical, real-time decisions.
And this is where those X and Y axes we talked about become so powerful. See, a great dashboard doesn't just spit a number at you. It shows you that number inside a target zone. It's usually color-coded, you've seen this before, green, yellow, red. Instantly, with just a quick look, you know if you're on track, if you need to pay a little closer attention, or if there's a real problem you need to address right now.
And look, using a dashboard isn't something you do once and then forget about. It's a continuous cycle of improvement. You're constantly reporting the results. You're deciding on the right frequency to check in. Is it daily, weekly, monthly? And then you evaluate. If a number is off, if you're in the red, the single most important step is to dig in and ask that one simple question. Why? What's the root cause here?
So as we wrap up, just remember, not all KPIs are created equal. There's a big difference between a good one and a great one. The truly great ones, they all share three qualities. First, validity. Is it actually measuring the right thing? Second, quality. Can you trust the data? Is it accurate and reliable? And finally, understanding. Can anyone on your team look at it and know exactly what it means without a long explanation?
And that really leaves us with one last thought to chew on. Your KPIs, they aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet or a dashboard. They're actually characters in a story. It's the story of your progress. They're telling you what's working, they're telling you what's not, and they're hinting at where you're headed next. The only question left is, are you listening to the story they're telling?